Okay, for our audience listening, I'm in the studio with my lovely wife, Cora Wilson, formerly known as Cora Sanders, and we're gonna do an MMA Unraveled. So you were on the Fight Companion. We did UFC 222 Fight Companion. And you and I have done some other, we did like one other podcast together in the beginning.
Black Mirror.
Yeah, which is a crazy awesome show. But so today we're going to just talk about you and martial arts, right? So what, other than, so we got together and you didn't do any training or anything before that. And we've been together for a while before you got into training. But what do you feel like initially got you wanting to train and wanting to stay training?
Well, it's a really uninspiring story. Because I was working at the front desk with you. Well, it's like I wanted to train, kinda, but because I was so unathletic, I didn't want to train because that's really embarrassing. So when I was selling memberships, I was like, how can I be telling people you should join Forca and do kickboxing? Kickboxing's great. You're going to love it. And then not train kickboxing. So, that's when I was like, man, if I'm going to sell these memberships, I have to do this. So I remember, there was only one girl at the time that was really kickboxing. It was, Ian McLeod's wife. Jennifer?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
And she was training and she was even sparring and stuff. And I wasn't brave enough to make myself vulnerable yet because I didn't feel athletic enough. So, I wanted to sell memberships. So I started training martial arts.
So why did you feel like you were unathletic? Because pretty much everybody now thinks you're a total savage. And I was just talking on the very end of the last podcast. I was telling the audience to watch your last MMA fight. And but I mean, do you think that's coming up in traditional team sports and not getting playing time? Because I know that you and I obviously have talked in the past about those types of things, but why do you feel like you felt that way about yourself?
Well, because I was a fat kid growing up, and then I had a complex when I got to when I was in junior high and high school, where I really wasn't the fat kid anymore. I still thought I was the fat kid. I tell people a story about how if you've ever been to Long Pool, there's those 3 rocks, and there's one of them I don't get on at all. But you have to jump, or just hop over to get to the other rock if you want to jump off. I was
totally scared of that.
Yeah, well, so in my mind, I was like, there's no way I can get to that other rock because the crack was only a foot. That's how big that crack was.
It's way far down.
It is way far down. Yeah, and it's scary. And my biggest fear was I was going to jump and stop over that 1 foot hole and just drop. There was no, in my head, I just pictured myself just quite literally jumping in the air.
Do you remember when we went to Hollywood and Sharpie couldn't walk out on that?
Yeah.
And then he jumped out of an airplane a year later?
Yeah, crazy.
Wow.
But on an airplane, you are, or with the whole skydiving thing, is you're strapped to someone who has a job, and people do that all the time. Whereas you accidentally fall down a huge canyon or whatever. Yeah, you don't have any safety. But anyway, so I thought I was the fat kid that still couldn't move her body. But yes, the only sport I ever played was basketball, and I wasn't good at it. And a lot of that is my fault because I didn't love basketball, so I didn't practice basketball like someone like Serena Clokey, who, was a superstar at basketball because she put in the work, because she loved basketball. And I just didn't love basketball. So I didn't put in the work, and then in turn, I didn't get any time. I was on the B team, and she did put me out there And I was always a go-getter. So I sucked at basketball, but I was the one like going for the ball, sliding on her belly, trying to get it, or, you know, I was aggressive. I was a go-getter. But that's the only sport I'd ever played, ever, except for like kickball, and I'm not a good kicker.
I would say you are a good kicker.
Well,
I've been kicked in the leg by you.
Well, now I'm a good kicker. But no one ever taught me how to kick a ball, you know?
You can kick a ball, you can kick a leg.
That's right.
So, fast forward, somewhere between then and now, you have acquired the following credentials. You're undefeated in kickboxing. You've won 2 IKFs. One of them you only got to fight one time, but still very worthy and notable opponent. You fought 3 times in one weekend at the other one. You've got your purple belt in jiu-jitsu. You've got a brown belt in judo, your 3rd brown, which is, it goes 3-2-1 in judo, and you just had your 2nd MMA fight. What do you think about fighting in general? Or what's it like for you?
I think fighting is fun, but not fun like I think you should be very serious about going out into a cage or a ring when you're getting punched in the face or punching someone else in the face. And so I take it very seriously, but I don't have any hang-ups with fighting. Like, I think that's why I guess I call it fun, but I don't know. I mean, it's fun to train for it. At the same time, it sucks. I just like everything that has to do with it. The grind sucks, but I like the grind. Even the diet, it feels really awesome to know that you're in really awesome shape and to be the person that's not huffing and puffing. And when you've been in more rounds and someone else, your partner's dying and they were the fresh person in, you know, and you're not. So I like that. I feel like a specimen when I'm training. I wish I did feel more before I fought. I still don't know why or what the deal is with that, and if I should feel something. Before my first fight ever, I was nervous in a good way, like not nervous in like, oh my God, like what's gonna happen? I hope I'm gonna do good. It was just kind of like, what's it gonna be like? What's it gonna feel like when someone hits me? So I kind of was like wondering. There was wonder. But I never felt nervous. And even before my second fight that happened that day, I didn't feel nervous and I knew what it felt like. So I wasn't feeling anything. I was more like, okay, what's going to happen? Like, am I going to do it or am I not going to do it? And I felt weird before fights before, but not nervous. Like I felt like out of place before a fight. For example, when I fought in St. Louis, my 4th fight, possibly, or maybe my...
It was your 4th fight.
Could have been my 5th. You had to go out early, and coach had to go out early because they changed the numbers. So normally I'm getting warmed up, and my coaches I'm hitting mitts with them, and they're talking to me, and, you know, I'm getting mentally right before the fight. And instead, I'm alone in a hotel room with a guy sitting on a couch crying because he just lost his fight. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll keep shadow boxing. And then I remember like walking out to get in the ring and like I just see a pepperoni on the floor. And I'm like,
Lumiere Casino, yeah. St. Louis, baby.
Yeah, so I just like look down and see this pepperoni. And then I remember watching, and I think I can't remember, I think it was Freedom before me. Or was it Cortez?
They both fought that night.
Yeah, I can't
Freedom
remember.
knocked his guy out super bad, and it was a hometown boy, and they didn't want to stop the fight, and they let him take tons of abuse.
I guess that was the one, because I think Cortez got moved to first. So I did watch it. Yeah. That was the fight. So I got to see Freedom win, and then it was like you guys literally went from the cage back to me, and then I was in the ring, and it was just kind of like all weird, but I never felt nervous. It was just kind of like, okay.
It was kind of weird because they walked us from the hotel over that skywalk. And
the skywalk is where I saw the pepperoni.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like right next to the arch.
I would like to go back to St. Louis. I feel like that was a really miserable trip for me because I went up there and I was cutting weight and I was very uncomfortable when I was sitting in Dring's truck. I was in between these two fighters, and I was on like the seat in the back seat of his truck, and like it was kind of raised a little bit, so I had to like keep my balance on it because I was tired and kind of weak, and I didn't want to flop over on Cortez, and I didn't want to flop on Freedom. It was like those two, and everyone was asleep, so I just listened to Dring talk on the phone for 5-6 hours.
Legit times. That's the grind of which you speak.
Yeah.
The road. And then when we got there, I feel like it was snowing. It was snowy it
during
snowed
that
like
time.
all the way up there, I think.
Yeah.
Both times. Because remember we went to St. Louis one time and you didn't go, but I think Sharpie and
that night you guys had trouble getting
Cortez,
home when you did get back to Little
Sharpie
Rock.
and Cortez, and maybe Freedom all fought again. But I think
I know
maybe
Cortez
Sharpie
for sure did because you wrapped him and stuff.
Yeah. I gotta be teaching Josh how to wrap hands this weekend. Mentioned this on the last podcast. So this will be the first fight card that we're gonna have someone. So if you look at our 3 people we have this weekend that are competing, Tim just does boxing. He's boxing. Judo just pretty much does kickboxing. He's dabbled a little bit in MMA, but he doesn't come to any jiu-jitsu classes. He's kickboxing, and Damon's fighting MMA.
So all
all
3
on the same card.
That's pretty cool.
So
360 fights.
Yeah. I'm sure there'll be some sort of streaming capability for you to take advantage of. That's going on this Saturday. So so you just fought. That's kind of I wanted to talk to you about that. What? Okay, so your second MMA fight. Your first MMA fight was on Legacy. It was an incredible opportunity, and due to your experience, you fought an opponent that had some fights. It had maybe just a few more fights than you even, and she just kind of grind like Randy Coutured you, but without all the cool head control you were doing in your fight the other night. But she just like stuffed a double and wouldn't try and take you down, held you on the fence, wasn't really hitting you, didn't want to engage, and it was like the first amateur fight on a mostly pro card, and it was a great experience, but it was a decision for the other girl, and then you came back and dominated the other night against this Melody McGill girl who is obviously was less experienced or whatever, but still posed an interesting sort of puzzle, right? Because it's like she was a jiu-jitsu blue belt, didn't know a ton about her other than she's real strong. She's doing like American Ninja Warrior. She competed at Pans, until she competed and lost. I think the audio kicked off on the computer. It did. Hold on. It's done this several times today. So, but we didn't know a lot about her until but like we watched a lot of her grappling matches, but
I didn't watch one grappling match.
Josh and I, and Josh is one of our coaches from the gym. He's been on the MMA Unraveled show with me several times, but we watched all of her grappling matches, and we didn't know really anything about her striking background, which maybe doesn't even exist.
That's still a question.
Yeah, we still don't.
Is she really a southpaw? Or did she just decide to be one that day,
Yeah, well, I felt like she stayed southpaw.
No, she did.
Every time.
But if you're not a striker, are you choosing to stand in a jiu-jitsu base?
Even Nathan Kirby commented on that. Like in like the second or third round, the commentator was like, "Oh, she's southpaw now," and I was like, "Oh, I thought she was southpaw the whole fight."
But
that's what I thought. I didn't notice her.
He probably just didn't notice it in the get-go because I hit her and then that was it, and she shot. So, but I mean, I feel like I was the more experienced fighter, but and in my first fight, the other girl had more MMA experience, and Coach said, Master Dring, he was like, if there was one to lose, it needs to be that one. And because, I am an amateur and I feel like I am a good striker. I feel like I am good at jiu-jitsu, and I lost something that I hadn't put as much. I lost at the kind of wrestling cage work. And because I lost in that area only, it made us only work on it. I remember I fought on Friday and we were back at the gym the next week, early morning practice, working the cage wall work. So it's like, you know, it sucks to lose. That was the first fight I'd ever lost. And it was super disappointing because it was the first fight that my family ever came to watch me fight at. So it's like, I feel like the loss overshadowed the wins for like me. Not saying that it does, but the way I felt was this one loss overshadowed all of my wins. And so, you know, I did fix that. I fixed it. It's like I got to see what I wasn't good at yet, and then I was able to do something about it. And I think that showed in my this fight. I was super happy that I got to demonstrate what I had previously failed at before. So, yeah.
What it's kind of funny to me because I mean I'm obviously biased because you
love me.
I love you, but also
you're my coach.
Yes, have been pretty responsible for your upbringing in a lot of ways, along with Danny Dring and Caleb Plank and other people. Willie McLaughlin, who's coach of Bryce Mitchell, who's just on Ultimate Fighter. He's coming on the show. And so like I'm obviously a little biased, but there was a lot of people who like for some odd reason were maybe picking you to lose, and just
I'm sorry. What?
Yeah, I mean, well, so that was the thing is like, oh, this girl, blah 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 blah, she's so da 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 da. Yeah. And for whatever reason, I didn't see a lot of that chatter. Even I felt like the promoters were not pumping you up because it's like, oh, this girl, she's a blue belt, da 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 da, she got it in this many months. It's like when I hear somebody that got a blue belt in like 10 months or some shit, I'm like, bullshit. Like I mean, she ain't that good. And like, so this is how good she is. As soon as you remarked on this last night, as soon as she got a takedown on you second round, you put that ass in an omoplata. And I made a joke yesterday. We were doing omoplatas, and I was like, I don't know if this would work in MMA because you hear people joke, I don't know, they work on the street or whatever. But I kind of felt like she was the underdog, unpredictable, just because like why are you taking this fight? You're a jiu-jitsu person. Cora's had kickboxing and has all this experience, and you outrank her and about compete like you've competed. You were throwing the number one ranked blue belt in the world at Pans 3 years ago at that belt, or something. So go ahead. What were you gonna say? That's
I was a little like in my mind, I was like, there's no way I'm gonna lose this fight. Like. And that was in my mind. And, like freaking Colby, our friend Colby, he's such an antagonist.
He is an antagonizer.
Yeah.
He has been since we were playing Pee Wee soccer together.
Yeah. So he's like my antagonist. I'm the protagonist. He's the antagonist. And he's like, Cora, don't be all underestimating this chick. And I'm like, Colby, you can believe in yourself without underestimating someone. It's like, sure, I'm good. I'm sure this girl is good at jiu-jitsu. She has won a lot of medals. And that's great. At white belt, you can go to a white belt tournament and go against someone who has no clue what they're doing. No clue what their game is.
Well, and this girl was undoubtedly strong, super core strong, real lean, an athlete.
She was an athlete. She's definitely an athlete. And no doubt, this girl is good at jiu-jitsu. But I'm better. I'm better because I put the time in. I'm better because it's like, she's scratching, the surface. It's like she has a lot of momentum right now. And I remember when I was the white belt winning golds at the tournaments, and when I was the blue belt winning double golds at Tulsa. I remember that. It's like I just won double gold at one of the Tulsa tournaments before the last one we did. It's like I'm there too, but I've been here for longer, and I've done more tournaments than you, and like.
And you're going into your prime.
And exactly. Well, and that's what I feel like. They were thinking that she's in her prime right now, but she's in her prime as a new blue belt. Like she's actually, she's like as in like 4-tip white belt prime. But now that she's hit this new area, I mean, she went to Pans and, she lost. And it's because she's going against people with more experience who are doing the same things that she is. You know, she learns good jiu-jitsu, no doubt. I learned good jiu-jitsu too for longer. So it's like, so at first I was really, really confident. Like, yeah, this is in the bag. I just have to be careful and smart, when I do fight. And then I was like, is there something I don't know? Why are they taking this fight?
It didn't make any sense.
It didn't make sense because if you think about it, this is my 7th fight. This is her first fight ever.
Well, and you've done a ton of jiu-jitsu tournaments too.
Oh yeah, no doubt I've done more jiu-jitsu tournaments than her. And so it's like,
and you own a gym.
And I own a gym. What's my job? To train and to teach and to do taxes and stuff and to clean the toilets and change the trash.
Go to the youth center.
But so that's where I started thinking, well, like they kind of, when my last fight fell through and they stepped up for it, they were like, okay, yeah, Melody, she'll fight. And then when this go around came, when they were asking out matchups, it's like they asked me if I wanted the fight, and it's like, well, yeah, of course. I'm not going to turn down a fight because I think that I'm better than the person. That's kind of the point of getting to fight, is because you might be
especially in this region, which is what is it? Mid-South, Mid-South region.
It's not like there's tons of
125 females. I mean, there are some in surrounding states, Tennessee, I'm sure, Oklahoma.
And also, it is unfair if you stick me up against a girl who doesn't even have a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, who, maybe that's their first fight. That's not fair. I mean, it's fine. It would be great for me, like, yum. But, Melody, because she was a blue belt, it put her into the bracket where she could fight me and it not be bad or weird or even kind of unsafe, because I am a striker too. But it made the playing field a little bit more even, and it allowed me to get more experience too. So it's not like I was going to turn down the fight because I, was like, what? I'm like overqualified for this position. But that's kind of made me a little like, why are her coaches doing this? Like, is there something I don't know? Did she do boxing at another gym? Did she kickbox at another gym and then move?
I wondered.
But it didn't look like she did.
It didn't. And it didn't look like, we watched her warm up a little bit, and it didn't look like she had any striking training, and it didn't look like the people warming her up knew how to hold mitts and things like that.
Well, I guarantee you she never had a true, and who knows, I'm just guessing, but I guarantee you that she did not get to spar other fighters. MMA spar other fighters. And
you actually, so here's a cool thing. So Andrea Lee, KGB Lee, who is debuting on UFC Chile, it'd be awesome to have her on the podcast. Maybe we can get them to come in and do a seminar. I know Donnie would be down to maybe do a kickboxing seminar.
He would.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
But so Andrea Lee, check her out. She's fought in Invicta, fought in Legacy, won IKFs. She kind of, I'm not saying like we're copying her in any way, but she kind of followed the same sort of blueprint. Is like you kind of, while you were crafting your jiu-jitsu, ran through the amateur kickboxing circuit, got a lot of stand-up experience, and then with your grappling and striking in place, started to do MMA. And she did something similar. She's even had boxing experience as a super legit jiu-jitsu purple belt.
She's a brown belt now.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, good for her. She submitted that girl as a Pans champ that you submitted the week after Pans in that Pete Wilhelm's gym. And so, you've there's more. You've been there, done that as well, and
but yeah, getting to train with her was definitely a good.
When you got to warm up with her too.
Yeah, no, that's what.
What a confidence builder.
It was, and that's what I even said. I made like an Instagram post, and I said, I don't know if it was a comment or what, but I just said, or maybe it was a Facebook post. I don't remember, but I said it really boosted my confidence to be in the back warming up with a flyweight UFC
she'll fight contender for a belt someday. I mean,
yeah, she will.
She's got a bright future ahead.
So that's and to know that that's what I'm getting warmed up with, while my opponent doesn't have that.
They were warming up with lead leg side kicks.
Ooh.
I mean, I know we recently did some lead leg side kicks, and you went through a Superfoot Bill Wallace seminar, which Man, that was such a good seminar, right?
That was a good seminar.
I was just told I talked to Dring yesterday when the episode with your car happened, and I came back to the house for a minute. So you guys are literally, Cora was gracious enough to do a podcast, cause I had to cut off the last podcast early to go, cause we were having some car issues at this present time, which we had put it in the shop and got to go back to the shop. So, she was nice enough to do a podcast, and take some time to sit down and talk about her fight. So, but yeah, that I really I don't think that, and I like that lead leg side kick when like it's southpaw and orthodox.
Okay, you like it when it's there.
Yeah,
you like it when you can get it.
Yeah, well, and too, like, so how much are you going to be? I mean, I guess, you see like a little bit of that lead leg front kick, lead leg side kick from that same situation with the old school Gracie stuff, right? And that's part of their self defense stuff. And you see them doing almost that tie to close the distance. And I get that, but maybe that was the influence they were going with. Maybe they were really strategizing, but I mean, I saw them like, just little things I see, like having trained like really good strikers, in my opinion, and trained with really good coaches. Like when you see someone overweave, like they weave way too far outside and they go down way too far, like little things like that. And I mean, everybody's got room to improve. I'm not here to be overly critical, but just to commentate on things that I saw. Well,
and that's we kind of assumed and knew that she wasn't a striker, but it's interesting because they're assuming it was like they assumed that I was, and I'm a mixed martial artist. I'm not a striker.
You own an MMA gym.
I'm not an
They even said that. I don't know who it was that said it, and afterwards, like that you were like a kickboxer, that they stood toe to toe with the kickboxer, and when the reality was, every time you touched that girl, she was just hugging. And
I mean, that's what it's like. Why call me a kickboxer? Why don't call me a 2-tip purple belter? It's like, I didn't even get to kickbox really. That was not a kickboxing match. And there was even a time, honestly, in the first where I knew, like, when we got on the cage, it's like I was excited to get, I spent a little bit too much time on the cage and I but I was excited to get to actually do the things that I'd worked on. I got the reversal because she did have me on the cage. When she shot in, which was a bad shot, it was a high shot. It basically just kind of closed the distance and got me on the cage. I was able to reverse her and get her back on the cage. And then that was my time to work my hand placement, head placement, my foot, my hips. So I was excited to get to demonstrate what I'd been working on. And at the same time, when I was trying to disconnect, she was trying to connect. There was one time she kind of broke and pushed off, and then it immediately kind of went back.
I do have some real, after watching this fight, I have some real specific clinch strategies for you like we were doing so good with that head placement and like even a wrist control. And you remember that series we've done a few times? I learned it from Mike back in the day. I don't know where he learned it, but it's like you're on the outside and you go to underhook, but they beat you to it, so you whizzer and then go for the single and stuff off of that, and it kind of traps their arm between you and the single, and like nullifies their underhook. So that's a great situation to disconnect from. It's hard to disconnect with an underhook.
That's the thing, is like, because it's like, okay, the goal is to get your underhooks, not let the person get their underhooks. Well, when I had my underhook, at least one underhook, it was just like we were connected, because if I broke away, that would allow her to get double unders, because we typically have an overhook and an underhook. So if I choose, because if she's got my arm, it's like if I choose to break, she's going to shoot that in, and I just didn't want to get body locked. So there was some hesitancy on breaking, but on the times I did break, it was like you're stuck. It was just like you are connected to this person, and that's things in training that I talked about too.
It's a blessing, and that happens because you got to get even more experience in that faith, and it's like you are an interesting puzzle for people to try and solve, and that's why that's two people in a row that have tried to fight you, and this person. Who do you think was Who do you think was stronger, this opponent or your last opponent?
My last opponent.
Yeah. So
she was stronger. She was bigger. And the difference is my last opponent knew how to do technique to make herself feel heavier, and this opponent did not. So I could feel the difference in their pressure and their weight when I was on the cage. Like, my last opponent, like, it was so hard to get her off of me. And there was a couple times we turned, but because I didn't have good details, but drilling on keeping someone on the cage, we immediately spun out, and then I was back on the cage. This girl that I just fought, I almost turned her at will. You know, it was like there were things.
She couldn't hold you on the cage.
She couldn't keep me on the cage. And I remember being that person, and I'm not that person because of
that
one
girl,
experience.
you know, things are like, what's frustrating is like, I know you remarked about this, and same concept to me is like when you start from under side mount and the person's holding you down in side mount, and like
starting in the bad spot.
Because that, like, what screwed us on that first fight, for your first MMA fight, is that girl really wasn't trying for takedowns.
No, not at all.
Or not even really striking a whole lot, so you didn't have a lot of opportunity to off balance or to pummel. And that was the most frustrating part, is that due to it amateur fight and it being, you know, early on the card, is the same thing with this situation. And I was even queuing because that girl you dominated the first 2 rounds. And then that girl got a takedown maybe 30 seconds into the 3rd round and really didn't do anything with it.
No, I sat with my butt on the floor and her head buried into my hip as she tried to progress to mount. And
you were striking.
Well, eventually, and you know, that's the thing, is like, first I was controlling the head. I was pushing the head away from me. Both hands were on her head.
Coaching you to do.
Yeah, because I'm like, you know, she's not creeping and crawling up and sliding her way. And then finally I was like, dang, like, this is boring. Like, I'm tired of sitting here, and my knees were pinched because that's what she's focusing on. And I couldn't cage walk. I couldn't wall walk. It was like my legs are pinned and we're just sitting there. So eventually I was like, you know what? Forget this. Like, I am not winning this round because, like, nothing's happening. So then that's when I just started beating the body, which I knew doesn't really hurt that bad in the position I was in, but it's points, it's striking, and it does make people nervous.
It started making her work too.
It started making her work. Exactly. It created the space I needed to just stand up and base.
Yeah, and crowd was cheering.
The crowd, I feel like, was definitely my friend.
Yeah,
in which I had a lot of people there for me, but at the same time, afterwards, I had a lot of people coming up to me and showing me a lot of love. And, you know, even going in there, like, if you look at my record, like, I was a 0-1 fighter. Unless they knew my maiden name, they're not going to find my kickboxing record, you know? So it's like, I looked like a loser going in. So that may be why her coaches wanted to take that fight, is because I'd already lost. And I didn't lose the strike. You know, I lost to someone who was kind of played like a wrestler's game. So they maybe thought that they would play a wrestler's game and get me down. But their wrestler's game plan didn't work.
It didn't. And it didn't work because you trained to overcome that.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, if I wouldn't have lost that first fight, I would have never worked on that part of my game so intensely and extensively. Like, I remember working with the boys one Saturday. We were doing wall work. Like, we just started those Saturday MMA practices. And so it's the first time Josh has really got to honestly see me do anything, really, you know? I mean, he's seen me, like, drill kickboxing and stuff. And so when we were doing the wall stuff, you know, and the guys were like, man, you are annoying. Like, your head placement was like pinning me. And
it's an art.
I mean. And then when I was doing my strikes off the cage, Josh was like, that was really difficult to deal with. Like, you were doing, I didn't know what you were going to do and where you were going to do it. And it felt good for that to have been my weak area, to now be somewhere that, oh, we're going to the cage? Cool. Let's go.
You do have really good sort of, I said this yesterday to that group, the creative combos when someone's against the fence, whether they have come out in your fights yet or not, they will.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's the thing about amateur fighting and what you're doing and what you've done is like, while there's not a whole lot of unknown left, there's still like, you know, you hadn't really been able to yet in this particular time get someone in like a nasty tie clinch and just knee their soul out the back of their body. Like I've got to do that in 2 fights. But
it's because my 2 opponents were really, like, I feel like my last opponent, as in my first MMA fight, knew I was a kickboxer, knew I won IKF twice, knew I was a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, knew I was good at jiu-jitsu, and didn't want to do either of those, so she kept it on the cage. And she had won IKF too, but that's people's their own head, you know, like she was still probably like, she's a kickboxer, she's a grappler, I'm going to hold her against the cage. I get that. She had good strategy. She won the fight. And I am excited to finally get to actually like strike someone in the cage. I'm really excited to get to fight someone who wants to engage with me in that way. Although I hope I find someone like that. There's just some tough people out there. Like Jessica Sotak, she's tough. She don't care. She don't care if you won IKF or whatever. She's going to be willing to exchange with you in the kickboxing area because she doesn't care. And I kind of can't wait to find that opponent that doesn't care and thinks that they're tough and thinks that they're tougher than me, because I feel like I'm really tough, and I would be very happy for someone to walk in at me. That would give me a great opportunity to actually get to work. Yeah,
there is going to come a day, if you keep competing, which I think that you are planning on doing that, that you're going to like explore all these situations. You're going to come and there's going to show up somebody that wants to stand and bang.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, both of my fights, I walked away without even ever looking like I was in a fight. Like, that's crazy. Like, people are like, MMA is so dangerous. Like, no rules, you know, like people who don't know anything about MMA. They think that it's so bloody. And I quite literally look like I could have done a photo shoot the next day, you know, other than some weird bruises. But that's both of my last 2 fights just haven't been super violent, you know. I kind of want to get violent.
Yeah, I would love to see it.
Me too.
I have seen it. Well, okay, so look, I know you're on a little bit of a time constraint for today. You got some stuff that you're doing at the gym. We have testings and stuff going on. So would you say that? Well, we'll just ask you this: like, you have been fortunate enough to get to do some awesome training over the years. Go to seminars, train with Mackenzie Dern and Hickson Gracie, and you were at the seminar that Hickson got promoted to red belt at. And would you say, I mean, do you do function a lot differently when it comes to the way? It's like I've remarked on this before. Like, I went to the Hickson seminar and it like changed my whole life. Like, I'm just like Dean Plank, he told me that he's like, you're enlightened now. And he's like, I can tell. I mean, he wasn't joking, because I really gained from it. But I mean, do you feel like you draw from those experiences in the same way, or you don't, or you're just like, because you do have an unusual air of confidence when it comes to perform. Like, I think it's, we've always just said it's because you're a performer, you've acted in plays, and you can just rise to that occasion in front of people, where I see people making Facebook statuses and stuff where they're just like, their biggest fear is being on the stage and failing in front of people. But you don't experience that. You, like, fear of the unknown is almost not a factor for you. I mean, you want to win though. So it's like, usually people are like, when they don't fear when they're not nervous for their fight, it's like they don't want it bad enough. But I know that you want it. I know you want to win. I know you're there to win. But you don't have that weird kind of psychological side, right? So like, and people say, well, like, oh, it's good. You don't, I'll be worried about you if you weren't nervous or whatever. But like, you just being a performer, it's unique. Yeah, that I don't feel like when I after the Hickson Gracie seminar, did I feel like a different grappler? No, I didn't. After training with Mackenzie Dern, did I feel like a different grappler? No. But those experiences did build my confidence. Being able in my head to say, Cora, you got to do 2 Hickson seminars. You got to train with Mackenzie. You got to train with Andrea. You got to roll with these other professional fighters. Like,
you are doing the things that you're supposed to be doing to get the results that you want to get. And I just believe in that. It's like, I believe that I am doing the right things. It's because you've always told me that I was. And I think it's because you've always told me that I'm doing the right things, and Dring has nothing but good things to say to me. I have the confidence because I believe what's being told to me. When I have someone in my ear, for example, like when my brother ran across that person that knew the girl I just fought, and that person like talked her up to my brother, and then my brother went to my grandpa's.
Sorry.
And then my brother went to my grandpa's house and then got my grandpa and my mom all worked up, saying that this girl was like an underground fighter, and like she's like super legit. And like, so my mom tells me this, and it's like when you say it, it becomes real almost. So when my mom like said this about how like they were getting worried now about the fight, it kind of for the first time ever clicked, like, oh, maybe I could lose this fight. Is there something I don't know? But then I was like, forget about it. No.
We never underestimated this girl. We gave her a due. It's an unpredictable. So I was talking to Josh about this earlier. Like, one thing as a coach, especially coaching a lot of amateurs, that I am learning more and more about, and it's more related to psychology than anything, is how to deal with unpredictability.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's like unpredictability is okay with me. Why? Because I do it all. Because I do jiu-jitsu and wrestling and judo and boxing and kickboxing and Muay Thai, like the clinch and the cage. Unpredictability is fine now because I know what to do in those situations. It's, do you know what to do when that time comes? And I think that that's what makes fighters good fighters, is because they have the right answer at the right time. You can have the right answer, but if you don't do it at the right time, it doesn't mean anything. And if you do the wrong answer, and I see a lot of fighters do really bad things, like, oh man, are you kidding me? Like, why would you ever do that? So just having the wrong answer and reverting to bad things that you know that you shouldn't do, but you do it because you're desperate, So yeah, my confidence, and it's interesting because even back in the day, my best friend ever, when I was younger, Katie, she told me when we got closer as friends, she saw that my insecurities and stuff, and she was like, I just never thought that you ever had any confidence issues. You always just seem so confident. And I don't know why I'm like that as a person. I guess I'm like Conor McGregor, who is a super positive and confident person. And I used to not be able to stand that dude. But after getting to know like more about him as a person, I like love him. Like, I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah, so you watched that documentary Notorious.
It was great.
Chad was just asking me about that. Well, and I'll say this as we wrap it up. 3-5 years from now, you're going to be glad you took the time to do this podcast because here's the thing. What you remarked on yesterday about that documentary is getting to see all that old footage.
That is true.
And to document your come up, because that's what's happening.
Yep.
Right. And it's just an interesting story. Everybody always comments on how cool what we're doing is and unusual.
I mean, it is crazy how many people truly, I feel like they want to know me because I'm fighting. You know what I mean? Like, people in town, like,
well, it's just because
they want to be a part of it.
You're like, there's no, like, I mean, the individuality is individuality, but there's who else is what all the things that we've said. You own a school, you're doing things like training with Hickson Gracie, Mackenzie Dern. I'm
pretty sure like I'm the only female MMA fighter in like this small little area, Well,
and I mean, let's just say that there may not be, in doing what you're doing competitively, there may not be 15 people like you in this country. That are school owners. Okay, yeah, that are judo, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, that have fought, and I mean, you are making a very unique path for yourself, and that's one thing people have remarked about this podcast is you have people on that are these weird niche, like Brian Chenoweth. He owns a music store. What an interesting part. I mean, like somebody said that, like, well, I'm excited to hear that one, because that's like how often you run into someone that owns a martial arts academy, that owns a music store, that is a professional musician, like some guy named Rob, or whatever. So, I mean, that's why people gravitate towards, I think, us and you, is because you're unique. You're obviously unique as a person.
Well,
without all
they're
of that.
invested in the journey too. It's like people are nervous when I go fight. These people are nervous, and I'm not even nervous. But I have people like, I'm praying for you. Like I've not been able to even think about anything else about you except you going in and your weight cut and you're this and you're that. And it's like,
Wow.
I have like 100 people that are thinking about me. Like, Cora's going to fight. Well, she's going to be on. Like, I probably have over 300 people being like, oh, Cora fights today. Cora fights tonight. You know, and thinking about that. And so I think people like to be a part of the rise. And honestly, it's like, even when like I lost, it's like I had flowers on my desk that next week, you know, from members and friends of the gym. And it's like people, they like to be a part of it. They like to be on the journey with me, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's an incredible story. It's and people get to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's, you know, we want them to be a part of it. So come on, we're doing incredible stuff. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast, which is conveniently located in the house in which you currently live. So,
But I hear our dog crying.
You poor pupper, man. I was plugged some guest spots on the last episode, Life Unraveled 20 with Chad Kersey. I've got some cool guests coming on next week and the week after, first couple weeks of April. And then also, we're going to have a local radio host, Hope Adair. I was just talking to her about coming on. So,
Yeah, I went to high school with Hope.
oh, yeah. So she is from Clarksville. Is
Yep.
she dating Cody Butler?
Yeah.
Dude, I used to love that guy.
Yeah. They're interested in the podcast too. Like, he was excited, and she made a comment on one of my Instagram posts, and I like forgot what post it was. And
Was it
replied back.
recently? Because I just messaged her like yesterday.
No, it wasn't super recent. It was right before you started. They were like, "Hey, we're excited."
Here's why I'm happy too that she's coming on and that you're on right now is because like I'm trying to balance more female guests. You know, like I hate that most of the guests have been dudes. Wide variety of dudes.
Well, it's
but,
because you're a man and you have a bunch of man friends. It's not like you hang out with a bunch of females.
well,
all the
too,
time.
yeah. And I was
You could have Evelyn on.
fucking shit.
Yeah.
Well, that would be fun. But yeah, so
It would be fun. We should do like a double, like talking about IKF stuff. That would be fun.
That would be cool. And the guy that covered your IKF story on YouTube, that
Yeah.
video's on YouTube, he's going to come on Tuesday, I think it is.
Uh-huh.
So, all right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Keep following, trying to put 5 podcasts out a week. Look for some other content coming out this week, and we'll see y'all on the flip side.
Bye.
Hear y'all on the flip side. All right. Bye. Yeah, I didn't know you went to school with her.